Welcome to the NoPo podcast, your home for non-political news, with your hosts, NoPo founder Vera Gibbons and media commentator Mitch Roschelle. NoPo, news without the noise.
Welcome, everyone, to the NoPo podcast. Thank you so much for checking us out these past couple of episodes. You've been telling your friends about us. We are grateful for that. For people who are new to the podcast, every week we showcase a hand-picked mix of non-political news stories. We like to share content for conversation, not animosity, something we desperately need these days. There's way too much hostility in the air. And a lot of the hostility comes from our political differences. So we've had enough of this, and we are sure that you have too. The we being me, Vera Gibbons, and my co-hosts, Mitch Roschelle and John Iannuzzi. Welcome, everyone. We're a couple months in, and we're doing okay.
We are doing okay. And one thing, and I've come to realize that every week we gain new listeners. I don't know why I say viewers, maybe because we use Zoom as a platform, but they are listeners. And we get reviews, and I'm going to share one with you. But since we do have new ears every week, a little bit of background. So Vera created a newsletter about 4 years ago called the NoPo newsletter, NoPo standing for non-political. And she stopped doing it a few months ago. And we came up with a brilliant idea, the three of us, to bring it back to life, but in podcast form. So this is the place for non-political news and hopefully fun. But along those lines, we got another 5-star review, out of 5, mind you, not out of 7, not out of 8, not out of 10. This one came from, I can't even figure out, it's all consonants, so I'm not even going to try to read it. But the title of the review is Denny's, and it says, "You guys just sold me on the Grand Slam breakfast at Denny's." So if you don't know what that means, I encourage you to listen to last week's podcast because we talk about Denny's. And I think one of the common themes we talk about on NoPo happens to be food for some reason. Maybe it's because John's a vegan and we love food stories, so we get to pull John in and get a vegan twist on Denny's.
And it's allowed, the podcast has allowed people who know me to publicly shame me for my dietary choices. If you read some of the comments on YouTube, I take shrapnel every week about this. I'm not telling people, eat your turkey, enjoy it. I'll buy you a turkey. I'm just not eating the turkey.
You know, hey, John, since I'm such I dare say I'm an Apple snob because I really like Apple products. Not because I'm a shareholder, but I just really like the ease of use. And you tend to be on even though you have an iPhone, but you tend to be on the YouTube version of the NoPo podcast, and we're in 3 places. Next week, I'm going to have you read some of those reviews, especially those ones that are
They're
directed.
They're not nice.
That are mean and directed at you. It'll be like our version of mean tweets, perhaps.
Subsequently, these folks could probably benefit from eating a little less meat.
Just saying. I wonder, Vera, what they are eating on. We just had a space launch a week ago or so. Spacex, which is Elon Musk's company, shot a manned. Is it now politically correct to say humaned? But there was a rocket ship with humans in it, as opposed to one that didn't. And they're up in the space station. But I wonder if when astronauts go into space, if they're still bringing Tang with them. Remember back in the day when we drank Tang as a breakfast drink, it was sold to us as being the stuff that astronauts drank.
That's a very good question. John's the trivia guy. Do you have any comments on Tang, John?
Can I be honest? I'm not. Is Tang a powder? It's a powder, right?
Yes, it was an orange powder, and you mixed it with water, and it made like a, sugary orange drink, kind of like a Sunny D, tasted like a Sunny D.
Yeah, I don't know that I've ever come across the stuff.
It was good. Well, we had it as kids. But, you mentioned Elon Musk and SpaceX, Mitch. I flew back to Florida last Sunday, and our plane, which was going Providence to West Palm Beach, we actually headed west for part of it because SpaceX was launching. It was actually very exciting. The pilot got on and said, well, we're going to take a slight reroute here because we've got the launch of SpaceX. And we're like, wow, this is Amazing. So we're one step closer to bringing private space flight to reality. I mean, it's exciting.
What's interesting to me, and I'm going to try to do my best to keep this non-political, but it's fascinating because as a kid, when NASA was the platform that created, Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin, the first people on the moon, and all of the other manned and unmanned space flights that I remember as a kid, and all the Apollo series, and then even the space shuttle, that was all NASA. And now we've mobilized the private sector. And I know we'll talk a little bit later about some of the pharmaceutical creations that are hopefully going to put COVID-19 behind us. But it is really amazing that when the public sector and the private sector work together, how powerful that is, as opposed to being at odds with one another. When they collaborate, you create innovation at really, really quick speed. And SpaceX is really, really impressive that way.
I agree. And I love Elon Musk. He's a rock star.
I'm a fan of his wife.
Which one?
Grimes.
Oh, he had one before, and he had like a bunch of kids with her.
His current wife.
Oh, yeah, she's a little cray-cray.
She's an interesting chick. We saw her in concert.
Wow.
All right. One other quick thing on the International Space Station, and I don't know if you guys saw this, but they brought one of those Baby Yodas up with them, and they used the Baby Yoda as a tool because there's some parts of the space station that are weightless and some parts that are not weightless. And when the astronauts are moving through the space station, they need to know when they enter a chamber or a room whether or not they're weightless. And what one of the astronauts did, he brought the Baby Yoda with him. So when he opened a door, he would throw the Baby Yoda. And if it floated, they knew it was a weightless room as opposed to a non-weightless room. That is a nugget of trivia that I figured.
I saw the Baby Yoda thing, but I didn't understand the collaboration at all or any of the connection between the two. But Mitch, I have a collaboration that would be of interest to you.
What's that?
A bacon-infused beer from the Waffle House. So the Waffle House is collaborating with a brewery to throw this out there and wash it down with your waffles and your eggs. And
having 20-year-old boys, I heard the word collaboration and immediately jumped to Supreme and Nike and some $600 sneaker, but then I looked at my show notes and realized you were talking about Waffle House's bacon infused beer. And I believe they have a little catchphrase which says bacon and kegs, which is cute. I love the Waffle House. Last week we talked about Denny's, but if I was driving down the street and I was looking for breakfast and there was a Denny's, an IHOP, and a Waffle House, I'd go right to the Waffle House. I'm a huge Waffle House fan.
I don't know that I've been to a Waffle House.
John?
I certainly don't. I know a lot of people love it, but the ones I've been to are not always the cleanest establishments.
Oh, listen, let's not throw Waffle House. That's throwing some serious shade at Waffle House. I'll say this as a adjunct business journalist. After natural disasters in the country, one of the things that they often refer to, like the FEMA folks, they refer to the Waffle House index. And what they mean by that is if the Waffle Houses are open, because that's, by the way, where all the journalists and first responders will go in sort of areas that got beaten up by storms. If the Waffle Houses are open, then it's a sort of a good sign that things are going to be okay. If the Waffle Houses are closed, then they know this is going to go on for a really long time. But
yes, it's an economic indicator.
It is a leading economic indicator. Well, we teased vaccines and, within the past week, we've seen amazing news coming out of Pfizer and Moderna with two vaccines that are they're similar, but yet different. But the efficacy rate of these things is phenomenal. It's 95% basically for both. And, we're 8+ months into this and everybody is just tired. I was having lunch today with somebody and they were talking about Greek tragedies. And I feel like 2020 is like a Greek tragedy. And it's good to know that there's a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel. It'll take a while for it to get out there. I think right now, one of them's in the hands of the FDA and it's going to be mobilized as soon as there's a green light from the FDA. And we're going to get it to first responders We're going to get it to hospitals. We're going to get it to nursing homes and assisted living facilities and really address the first responders and those most at risk. But it's a pathway to, feeling like we're on the other side of it. Brett Baer on Fox News always says that he ends the show with, every day we're one day closer to putting this all behind us. And I think the news of the vaccines really moved the stock market. And I think it also lifted America's spirits that, maybe there's light at the end of the tunnel, which is something we all need. And hopefully I did that in a non-political fashion so that we can stay true to our NoPo theme.
I think you did. And I do think that people are now seeing there is light at the end of the tunnel, and just the speed at which these companies have been developing the vaccine and getting it out there. It's really providing us with a sense of encouragement. I mean, you look at the rates and it's just depressing that they're, all these, a second wave and this and that. We've now recorded, over 250,000 coronavirus deaths. So this news could not come fast enough.
It's funny. I wanted to just jump in with a comment, which is the challenge with the headline numbers on the number of cases and tragically the number of deaths, and any number greater than one in terms of deaths is tragic. But you almost have to dust off your high school calculus textbook. And we have a guest coming up later that once upon a time was a math teacher. So I'm going to hit him up on some calculus questions. But besides that, what's interesting is if you remember from high school calculus, the rate of change, which is really the essence of calculus. If you look at the absolute number of new cases, it's alarming because every day there's seems like there's a new record. But if you actually look at it on a moving average basis and the rate of change, you realize that right now we're actually decelerating and not accelerating. And the reason why I say that, and forgive me for falling into a rabbit hole here, but since this is a contagious disease, you would think that 2 people infect 10 people, 10 people infect 100 people, 100 people infect 1,000 people, right? It's exponential. The good news is that the rate of change is actually decelerating and not accelerating. So that's actually a good sign. So if we're experiencing yet another spike, it's good to know that buried in there are some promising signs that this is in fact slowing and not spreading as quickly as a contagious disease does. So maybe that's more than anybody wants. And you do have the ability listening on iTunes to hit the 2 times button when I speak to make me go faster. So you don't have to listen to that. But I think there's some good news out there, and I'm really hopeful that we're not too far from 2021. And I think the light at the end of the tunnel isn't a train, and it's in 2021. And that's really promising.
I just feel so lucky that at this point, this deep into the game, we've escaped unscathed. I mean, I really don't know anyone close to me that's been impacted on a personal level. Do you?
You know what's interesting? When this first happened, and I was talking to folks I work with, it was like the 1 degree of separation story. And everybody was 1 degree of separation away from somebody. I think the severity of those stories have gotten worse, at least in my world. But I think that the really bad stories were back in March and April. And now when I hear stories about people who tested positive, they're fine, and I don't want to minimize a contagious disease by any stretch of the imagination, but at least the stories I'm hearing are better. Changing topics, Vera, how do we not talk about Bitcoin? Got to talk about Bitcoin.
Gotta talk about Bitcoin. I've been obsessed with Bitcoin, since it first made headlines. But I think it's interesting now that it's at a 3-year high now.
It's up like 60%
yeah,
this month, right?
Yeah, in the past month alone. And you got the institutional names in there. Now you got Fidelity, you got Square, you got PayPal. So obviously it's becoming a little more well-known, a little more mainstream, perhaps. But what I don't get is why we're not hearing perhaps as much about Bitcoin as we did when we hit these highs continually back in 2017, the end of the year. I don't know. I think that the fact that PayPal is going to let you shop with crypto early next year is basically an indication to me that it is going mainstream and more companies will follow suit. But I don't know. I mean, I think it's kind of fascinating because we haven't really been talking about it, but I do pay attention when these cryptocurrency bulls are going on the air saying, "Oh, we're going to hit $60,000 a Bitcoin by the end of the year." I mean, it's just like, that's insane. A couple of years ago, it was like 6,000 or something, wasn't it?
Yeah. I'll say this about Bitcoin, because we have our guest for this week waiting in the wings. I think it's been crowded out of the news cycle because there's so many other things in the news cycle right now. And you appropriately curated it for today's show because this is non-political news, and there is actually a political element to Bitcoin, but I won't get into it. But I just think there's so many other things in the news cycle that no one's paying attention. But I'll say this: the Fox Business, the CNBCs, the Bloombergs, they do talk about it, but it's not something that's being covered beyond the business shows. But I think it will. I think if Bitcoin still keeps making new highs, the challenge with Bitcoin is it's tied to technology that it's hard to explain. And if you start trying to explain cryptocurrency and tokens and blockchain technology, I think people's eyes start rolling in the back of their heads. And that's why it doesn't get the deep dive, but I think it will. I think it's for sure a 2021 story when we're not talking about awful stuff in the news. Well, without further ado, let me introduce our guest for this week. We've had different folks from different walks of life. Many of the guests that we've had on NoPo so far have been from the world of broadcasting. Many of the folks in the world of broadcasting are entertaining, but we decided to pivot and go with a straight up entertainer for this week's show. And I give my wife, Debbie, absolute credit. I was talking to her about potential guests, and she said, "How about your rapper friend from New Orleans?" And I said, D1, boom, there it is. I reached out to him. He responded quickly. And then and we chatted on his Instagram Live the other day. But D1, are we allowed to use your real name, or is that something like you keep on the down low?
You can definitely use it.
All right. So also known as David Augustine, went to LSU, graduate, became a high school teacher. And when he started pursuing his passion of laying down rhymes, you see what I did just there? That's pretty cool. In any event, he started rapping about, of all things, financial literacy. And that's where our paths crossed a couple of years ago, because it's a topic that I'm passionate about. And David took his talents as an entertainer to really connect with kids of all walks of life and, sort of raise their consciousness around money. He has a theme that transcends really all of his music, which is his threes up. I can't do it with my fingers really well, but it's to be real, to be righteous, and be relevant. And I think Dee's going to talk about there it is. He's going to talk about those three guiding principles that have made him the person that he is, and his line of merch that says, be real, be righteous, be relevant. But without any further ado, my friend from Nolans, did I do that the right way? D1.
I like it, Mitch. I like it. Thank you. Thank you all for having me. I'm extremely excited to be here.
Yeah. So tell us real quick, how's your two careers going? You're an entrepreneur with your line of merch, and you're also obviously a rapper and an entertainer. So how's in reverse order, how's the music career going, and then how's the merch business going?
Yeah. So the music career is thriving. I just put a new single out today called Hi Mom. Hi Mom is a song where I'm reflecting on my time as a teacher when I first told my mom I wanted to quit my job as an educator to become a rapper. And my mom was so fearful that I was making the worst decision of my life. And she was a little upset with me. So Hi Mom is me looking back now, years later, having become very successful, doing way more than I could have ever dreamed to do when I first got into this career, expanding to having my own clothing line, being a public speaker, having partnerships with various, huge corporations. And it's kind of me looking back saying, Hi, Mom, look at what I'm doing. I'm winning trophies and getting plaques. I'm making money and giving back. You know, it's like, Mom, I really made something out of myself. So the music career is going great. This pandemic has forced me to pivot away from doing concerts and touring all around the country to more of a virtual business model, to where I've been doing keynotes virtually, been speaking, just spoke to Harvard's educational cohort 2 weeks ago, and doing a lot of online concerts. So it's been fun and it's been challenging because of COVID. I definitely missed out on over 6 figures worth of income because of canceled concerts and shows. But I've also pivoted and made up for that in other ways. So I love being challenged. But I do hope this vaccine comes out ASAP. and the apparel line, like you said, Mitch, me seeing that people are in a space nowadays where they want to be able to express their individuality and make a statement without having to open their mouth. So if I can provide clothing for people that makes a strong statement wherever they go, it can represent more of a lifestyle for them. So the name of the clothing line is called Mission Vision Lifestyle. And when you see my apparel and it says be real, be righteous, be relevant on it in very stylish ways, hoodies, t-shirts, this is something that people like. They like what that stands for. It's not just catchy, but it's a phrase to internalize and really live by. You know, in everything you do, you should strive to be real, which is just embracing who you are, loving yourself. Be righteous, meaning doing the right thing is right, doing the wrong thing is wrong. There's no middle ground when it comes to that. So do the right thing. Try to show love. Try to be a respectful person in whatever you do, and be relevant. To be relevant, you got to shut up and grind. You can't make excuses. You have to work extremely hard. Whether it's the NoPo podcast, whether it's being a rapper, whether it's being an educator, to be relevant to the people that you want to reach, you have to work hard. And I feel like I have that in common with a lot of my fan base. And that's why they've been rocking with me all these years.
I think the next thing on one of your hoodies should be a hoodie that says "Shut Up and Grind."
You like that? You like that? Yeah. So that's the title of a song. That's one of my songs, "Shut Up and Grind." So I never made merch with that phrase on it, bro. I'm gonna do it as long as you agree to not hit me for any royalties, because saying
no royalties, and any royalties that would be due me, you're welcome to give to charity. But I'm gonna second that "Shut Up and Grind" hoodie comes out. I'm buying one. I'm sending it to our partner and executive producer John Iannuzzi, and I'm gonna make him wear that instead of his sad fish hoodie that he's wearing right now.
I love it.
All right. So every guest that comes on, we talk about a story with before we go. And the one that I feel we just have to, being a New Yorker, John's in Connecticut. I'm in the northern suburbs of New York. Vera used to be a New Yorker until a few months ago when she flew south and bought a one-way ticket to Palm Beach. But an annual tradition this time of year is the appearance of the Christmas tree at Rockefeller Center in New York. And everybody knows Rockefeller Center. It's as iconic New York as you can get. And this year's Christmas tree, it's either an icon for 2020 or it's their way of bringing the Snoopy tree to scale. But it is the saddest looking Christmas tree they've ever put in front of 30 Rockefeller Plaza. I don't know if you've seen it. Have you seen it, D, at all?
No, sir. Why would they do that to us? 2020 has been hard enough as is. Why would they do that, man? Like, I hope somebody, like, why? I need to understand why they would put such a pathetic. I don't think, Vera, I don't think it was intentional. I think in transport from its original home, what they generally do is they scout out a tree. It looks perfect. They cut it down, they stick it on a flatbed, and they haul it to Midtown Manhattan. I think something happened in transit, or the tree wasn't as healthy. But literally, a portion of the tree literally has no branches on it. It looks like the Snoopy tree.
It's pathetic. It is indicative of 2020. So maybe it's appropriate. But on the flip side, you could say, well, can't we at least have a decent tree? It's very scrawny, very scrappy looking. And then we also found that as it was en route, a little small owl about the size of a soda can was discovered during the transport. I mean, this was like a 200-mile truck ride. And the little owl survived 3 days without food and water. They nicknamed him Rockefeller. I mean, it's just kind of like sad. Poor little guy stuck in the tree.
Yeah, poor little guy stuck in the tree. But that is 2020 right there in a nutshell. Dee, where can our listeners find your music and where can they find your merch?
So they can find my music on all streaming platforms just by searching D1. D1 is spelled DEE-1 on all streaming platforms. And they can find my merch at my website, which is missionvisionlifestyle.com.
All right.
So that'll be great. I'm looking forward to pleasantly surprising some people who, Mitch, the great things about our relationship and friendship is it looks very unorthodox from the outside looking in. You know, people might look at the two of us and be like, what's the bromance between these two guys? Like, it couldn't be more different, but I like that. And I like the art of being able to pleasantly surprise people when they hear my music. They may come into it with a preconceived notion of what a rapper from New Orleans with dreadlocks is about to talk about. But once they realize that I'm real, righteous, and relevant and on a mission to change the world, they usually are really excited to dig into what I do.
And you are entertaining. And I had the absolute pleasure of going with you on more than one occasion to schools in Harlem, in the South Bronx, and watching you engage with kids and preach those three values to them. And, I wasn't dancing to your music because you certainly don't want to see me dance, but the kids were. And you were a powerful and inspirational individual. And I'm so glad you joined us today.
I'm honored, extremely honored.
Now I can say
awesome.
I know a rapper.
Well, and he's a rapper. You are our first rapper. And I'm going to say, I think this is episode number 6 or number 7, John.
I think
this is 6. This is number 6.
This is number 6. So in 6 episodes, you without a doubt win best hair, D. No question about it. You win best hair. So and since you if you pick it up on YouTube, you can see the little picture on the front. You get a feel for D's hair. But if you really want to see what he looks like, go onto any streaming service and hit DEE with -1. And you'll see what this handsome devil looks like because he's got that hair is fire. That's what I'll say. The hair is fire.
I Googled "Hi Mom." I figured I'd play it on the way out today, and on Google is a wonderful picture of David D1 and his mom from Jazz Fest. There's "Hi Mom" right there.
Wow.
Yeah. There we go.
Wow. Thank y'all so much. And fun fact, John, you just got me in a lot of trouble because my mom hates to be on public display. So she told me, she said
she's famous. There's nothing you could do to stop it.
She said you better not mention me or show my picture on any of your internet promotions with this song. So thanks, John. I just got a whipping because of you.
Hi Mom.
There we go. And so as we sign off, a quick shout out to D, our mutual friend Swin Cash in the front office of the New Orleans Pelicans, and we're going to make sure we get her on the NoPo podcast before or after she has that baby. But you and I both work on that together. Anyway, thank you for joining episode 6 of the NoPo podcast. D1, thanks for joining us. We couldn't have done it without you. Vera, John, thank you. And thank you all for listening to the NoPo podcast, News Without the Noise. See you next week.
Okay. Hi, Mom. Look at what I'm doing. I'm winning trophies and getting plaques. I'm making money and giving back. Yeah. Okay. Hi, Mom. All of my dollars got blue faces. All of my tennis got new laces. Every day I'm seeing new places.